This is the Juggernaut Classic Duo ST from Biktrix. The brand offers a variety of options for the Juggernaut. This is the mid-tier Duo model with a cadence sensing 750 watt mid-drive motor. We haven't seen too many bikes with this kind of setup, so we were curious to see what happened in our series of standardized performance tests. So how'd the bike do? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report. My name is John and I'll be your host today. Before we jump in, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel, especially if you're in the market for a new e-bike. Figuring out which bike is best for you is no easy task, but we're here to help with our super detailed reviews that include objective data from real-world performance tests. So if we're able to guide you toward a great bike, we also ask that you do us a favor in return by using our affiliate link in the video description if or when you make a purchase. We are supported by commissions that help us keep the lights on, but using that link won't increase the price of the bike. Business aside, let's jump into the Juggernaut. Now, I do want to point out that there are a ton of models on the Biktrix website with that name, and each of them have different specs, but again, we're going to be talking specifically about the Classic Duo ST model here. That's a bit of a mouthful though, so I'll probably just say Juggernaut or Duo more often than not in an effort to keep things simple. To start off with a few highlights about this bike, I want to touch back on that mid-drive and cadence sensor combo. This motor is super powerful with 120 Newton meters of torque. It's made by Bafang, and I found that the biggest benefit from this motor was an incredibly easy pedaling experience. We'll dive into more details in our speed test section later, but this bike has preset speed limits in each of its pedal assist settings, and thanks to the cadence sensor, I didn't really have to put in any real effort when pedaling. As long as the pedals were moving, even with light effort, the motor brought the bike up to speed quickly and easily. Another thing that stood out was the massive number of customization options that Biktrix offers at purchase. So there is a standard setup, which our test bike here doesn't deviate from too much, but if you have some extra cash and you want to make some changes, you can choose from 182 custom color options. You can upgrade the suspension fork, the handlebars, the brakes, the headlight, and you can add a suspension seat post like we did. I thought all these options were really cool, and there just aren't too many other brands out there that offer this level of customization. One last thing I want to mention is the bike's riding position. So most of the fat tire e-bikes we've tested were pretty upright in their positioning, but the Juggernaut is a little more sporty and aggressive with a forward-leaning riding position. I'm personally pretty hit or miss with this style, but I thought this bike was super comfortable to ride. I really liked the saddle and the ergonomic rubber grips, and I also thought the sportier feel just really matched the speed and power of the motor. So that covers my big takeaways, but let's run through the rest of the bike specs before moving on to our test sections. The Juggernaut comes with a 52 volt battery with 910 watt hours of capacity, and that's actually another thing that can be upgraded when buying the bike. If you want even more juice to keep that motor running, you can add one of two external range extender batteries with either an additional 884 or 1092 watt hours of capacity to bring the total up to either 1794 or a ridiculous 2002 watt hours. The drivetrain is a 9-speed Shimano Alivio setup with a 44-tooth chainring, a 12 to 36-tooth cassette, a KMC chain, and a trigger-style shifter on the right handlebar. For brakes, the Duo comes standard with the Tektro E350 hydraulic disc system with 2-piston calipers and 180mm front and rear rotors. This version of the bike has 24-inch by 4-inch Kenda tires with knobby tread. There are alloy fenders on both wheels, and there's an RST guide suspension fork up front. We measured about 80 millimeters of travel. The bike includes a cargo rack with a 55-pound carrying capacity, and there's also an integrated headlight as well as a tail light below the cargo rack that functions as a brake light. Up in the cockpit, there's a set of 700mm handlebars with an 80mm rise mounted to a 90mm threadless stem. There's a throttle lever on the left handlebar next to the bike's control panel, and then there's a central color display that gives you all your ride data. To wrap things up with a few final details, the Juggernaut ships as a Class 2 e-bike with throttle and pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour, but it can be unlocked to a Class 3 with pedal assist up to 28 miles per hour. It has a total payload capacity of up to 265 pounds, and our test bike weighed about 73 pounds, including its battery. I couldn't find any information on the Biktrix website about UL certification, but hopefully that's coming in the near future. And then the base model of the Classic Duo with the step-through frame has two standard color options called Emerald Green and Electric Blue, but of course there are tons of custom options as well. That should cover just about everything, so let's move on and see how this bike performed in our speed, brake, range, and hill tests. The first test to cover is our brake test, where we determine the Juggernaut's average stopping distance by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, hitting the brakes at a predetermined line, and measuring how far the bike traveled before coming to a complete stop. Things are going to be a little different every time you hit the brakes, so we did this test 3 times and then calculated an average result of 24 feet and 5 inches. So I thought the brakes felt pretty good when I was riding the bike, but this test score is a little longer than we hope to see. For comparison, the average for all the other fat tire e-bikes we've tested was 22 feet 6 inches, so the Duo was almost 2 feet beyond the average. Now, our test bike has the standard Tektro E350 system that I mentioned earlier, and we've tested this model on a huge variety of different e-bikes. The Duo ST is on the lighter side for a fat tire e-bike, but it's still relatively heavy, and most of the time this brake system seems to work best on light to mid-weight e-bikes. If you're looking to customize this bike when you buy it, you can upgrade to a 4-piston Magura MT5 system that we expect would perform quite a bit better. We've actually tested that system on other bikes, but we recommend that Biktrix upgrade the standard brake system to one that's a little bit more effective, especially considering that this bike can be unlocked to 28 miles per hour. That said, one great thing about fat tire e-bikes is that they tend to be pretty stable when braking. This one could fishtail a little if I really clamped down, but it always felt well under control, so there definitely is an upside here. I performed our speed test on the Classic Duo ST, where I went out to the bike paths and recorded my speed in each pedal assist setting, which was pretty easy because of its combination of a powerful motor and a cadence sensor. I tested the bike both in Class 2 and Class 3 speed limits, as well as in its eco and sport riding modes, both of which have 5 pedal assist settings. Finally, I tested out the throttle to see how quickly it could get up to speed. So let's go see how the test went, and we can talk about the results back here in the studio. All right, let's do a speed test here. We're gonna start off in eco mode, and then we'll do a separate test in sport mode later on. So with no pedal assist, I'm going kind of right around 9.5 miles per hour. Not putting a lot of effort into it. I'm not trying to kill myself here. And then also we're just trying to see kind of what the preset speed limits are with the cadence sensor on this motor. So let's go ahead and go up to PAS 1. There's a very slight whine there. And I don't really feel a whole lot of help from the motor. It feels very natural here. I guess there's, a half mile per hour of difference or so, up to about 10 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS 2. Okay, definitely a noticeable difference there. We're up to about 12 miles per hour. Maybe a little above, yep. 12.3. 12.2. It feels really nice here. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS 3. All right, definitely starting to feel the speed and power of this thing. And we are kind of holding right around 15.5 in PAS 3, maybe a little above. Let's go up to PAS 4. And I'm going to shift up a couple gears here. Okay, we are I mean, I can feel that the motor is really doing all the work here, and it's just not having any effort at all. All right, we're up to about 18 miles per hour or a little above, and then we'll finish things off in PAS 5. Yeah, I mean, picking up nice and quick here. A little bit of a headwind going on, so I think that's maybe holding us back a little bit, but we're kind of right between 19 and a half and 20 miles per hour pretty consistently. So, well, approaching 20. Anyway, we'll call that the eco mode test. Let's turn around and see what happens in sport mode. All right, we are back for a class 3 speed test. This is a different day. It's pretty windy out today, so we'll see if that interrupts us. But yeah, we're starting things off kind of around that same spot, 10, maybe 10 and a half miles per hour in PAS 1. Let's go up to PAS 2. All right, wow, definitely some juice there. Shift up to 6th gear. And actually, I think I'm gonna go up to 8th. Yeah, all right. We are landing kind of between 16 and a half and 17 miles per hour in PAS 2. All right, let's go up to PAS 3. All right, so definitely like a surge in power and speed there. Picking up very fast. We are cooking now. So looks like we're going around 21 miles per hour here. Pretty speedy. All right, let's go up to PAS 4. Oh, all right, yeah, there we go. We are up to 25.5 miles per hour. I'm ghost pedaling at this point, which, you know, not a huge deal at these speeds. So yeah, right around 25 miles per hour in PAS 4. And then let's finish things off after I get around this bend in PAS 5. Right up to 27. Whoa. All right, 27, maybe 27 and a half. That looks like about the max. All right, let's call it there. All right, let's see how quickly the throttle on the Juggernaut here can reach 20 miles per hour. We'll do an eco mode test. We may or may not do a sport mode test. I think the throttle power seems to be similar, but I will, check the data and we'll either show you 1 or 2 depending on how it works out. But in any case, let's start in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, nice. Quite a bit of kick there to start. We are in 4th gear, by the way. Just gonna kind of stay there. Nice middle ground, but picking up quickly to 19 miles an hour and 19.5, 6, 7. All right, that looks like about the max. 19.8. All right. All right, so let's see if the throttle does anything different here in sport mode. It should. I mean, the speed limits for pedaling were the same, but more power, so technically faster acceleration. I would expect there to be a little bit of difference, but let's go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, and same gear. Picking up. It does feel faster, I don't know. 18 and a half, 19 and a half, and seems like it's kind of holding steady in that area, but all right, I guess we'll call it there.
To run through all those numbers again, I started off with no pedal assist at 9.7 miles per hour.
In the Class 2 test, PAS1 brought me up to 10 miles per hour, PAS2 hit 12.2, PAS3 went up to 15.5 miles per hour, PAS4 had me at about 18.1, and then PAS5 finished things off at 19.7 miles per hour. In the Class 3 test, my speed started off around the same place, but quickly shot through the roof. I pedaled at 10.3 miles per hour in PAS1, 16.7 miles per hour in PAS2, 21.1 in PAS3, 25.3 in PAS4, and 27.2 miles per hour in PAS5. Now, if we put that data in a graph, we see some really good results. Most of the time, we look for an angled line that shows consistent increases in speed, and both of the graphs for this bike are a little rounded at the top and bottom, but for the most part, they're spot on. The bike's programming allowed me to control my speed, and it offered a variety of options whether I wanted to take it easy or just get where I was going. I'll get into this a little bit more later on, but I didn't really notice a whole lot of difference between eco and sport mode, and as you could see, there were only a couple of seconds of difference in the throttle test. Sport mode was a little more powerful and quicker to get up to speed, but I don't think there's much reason to worry about changing the riding mode. We'd prefer a bit more distinction between these modes, or just to consolidate them into one mode to make the bike even easier to operate. The throttle could definitely be a little punchy, which is not unexpected considering the motor's 120 Newton meters of torque, but it also felt pretty controlled in the Class 2 mode. I do want to point out that it will reach 28 miles per hour in Class 3 mode, and we'd prefer it share the same 20 mile per hour limit there, but you can just disconnect it to make sure you're within the legal limits. Minor hiccups aside, I think the bike did a great job in this test. Bottom line, it's fast, it's fun, and it's super easy to ride. For our range test, we just used the bike in eco mode since there wasn't a whole lot of difference in sport mode, and we tested its range by riding in Class 2 mode in PAS1 until the battery ran out of charge to get the bike's maximum range. We did the same thing in PAS5 to get a minimum range and ended up with 36.1 and 68 miles with the standard 910 watt-hour battery. Both of these results are above average for the fat tire category. The average minimum and maximum are currently 32.4 and 57.7 miles, so the difference wasn't huge, but we were still extremely happy with where things ended up. We think the Duo did so well simply because of its massive battery. Most of the other fat tire bikes we've tested had significantly smaller batteries. It's worth pointing out that most of those other bikes had rear hub motors, which are usually less efficient than mid-drives, but in this case we think it's likely that this bike had similar efficiency to a hub drive because of its cadence sensor. Still, in the PAS5 test, we ended up with about 14 miles more than we expected based on the motor and battery specs, which also gave us about an extra 45 minutes on the bike. Based on our testing, we think most riders could get between 2 hours and 6.5 hours on the bike, depending on which pedal assist setting they use. And as I mentioned earlier, this bike can be outfitted with an external second battery. By calculating the number of watt hours we used every mile in our test, we estimated that this bike could, in theory, go between 71 and 134 miles with the 884 watt hour option, and even further with the larger upgrade. But do keep in mind that riding off-road or in Class 3 speeds will reduce the bike's range. One final thing to mention is that this bike includes a fast 3-amp charger, which can refill the battery in under 6 hours. Our tester Justin tested the Juggernaut's hill climbing ability at a place called Hellhole Trail. He pedaled up and throttled up the path, which is a third of a mile long and has a super steep average grade of 12%. I'll pass you over to him for a few minutes so you can see how the bike did, and then we'll go over the results back here.
All right, we're out here at Hellhole on the Biktrix Juggernaut. Now this is a mid-drive bike, and so I've got it, this is the throttle test, so I've got the gearing set up where it's in a little bit easier gear. I think I got it correct here. So far feeling pretty peppy. So 12, 11.6, 11.0, 10.2, 10.0, 9.5, 9.4. So kind of bottomed out there at around 9.3. Motor sounds about average. I don't have a ton to compare to in terms of throttles on a mid-drive. It's not a super common setup, but it feels pretty good. I'll let you listen through this section. So yeah, you almost hear the tires and that hub clicking a little more than you do the motor, but it's there. But it feels decently powerful. Definitely, as long as you get kind of the gearing right when you're throttling, it'll do a good job up a hill, is what this is showing. So we'll see when we go to the tape. I think it's going to be a pretty good result. So yeah, let's go check it out. Okay, we're back out here on the Biktrix Juggernaut in sport mode on the throttle now. And we're gonna see how it does. So again, just throttle only. I'm in 4th gear, so I think it's a good gear. And it's feeling pretty good. Got about 11.6 through here, 11.3, 10.8, 9.6, 9.4, 9.3, 8.5. Looks like that's about where it's going to bottom out. So I'm not sure if it's going to be much different than Eco, just because of, again, this is just the throttle. It definitely felt different on the pedal, but we'll have to check the tape. I'll let you listen to it through this section. So yeah, motor still sounds nice. Got just, you know, between 9 and 10 through that section there, so pretty good. Not as good as the pedal test, which again, to be expected, especially on a mid-drive motor like this. And overall, I mean, this made it up and down the hill now, you know, several times. So it's got a lot of juice, a lot of power, very strong motor. And as long as you get the gearing right, you won't have any problem throttling up a hill. Okay, we're back out here on the Biktrix Juggernaut doing the pedal test. And so far feels pretty peppy. Again, this mid-drive Bafang motor just does feel powerful. So 13.5 miles per hour through here, 13.0, 12.1, 11.0, shift there. You'll notice when I shifted, the power did kind of click out just for a second as I shift. That does, some companies do set up their bikes that way. So there's just a little lag, but this one's not too bad because it gives you power immediately afterwards. Sometimes it kind of messes things up and you can't get your cadence back and it just doesn't work. But this definitely had enough pep to do that, to get me kind of back into my natural cadence. So through that hill, about 12.4 was the lowest it got. Well, you listen to the motor as I'm pedaling here quickly. Sorry, got some gearing noise there. But yeah, it feels pretty powerful. So just shifted to 6th in a slight decrease. I think the results are going to be pretty good. So let's go check the tape. Okay, we're back here again on the Biktrix Juggernaut, now in sport, doing the pedal test and seeing how this is going. So I'm in 4th gear, just a nice easy gear. I'm really not pushing a ton, and it's cruising. I'm in 13.6 through here, 13.2, 12.8, 12.6, 12.3, and about 11.9-ish through there. So definitely peppy and powerful. Didn't get down below 10 at all. Let you listen through this next section. Yeah, I mean, again, held right around 12 or 13, and that motor is just fairly quiet for how much power it feels it's giving. Feels really nice. I think it's going to be a pretty darn good result. And again, I'm not actually pushing that hard. I've got it in an easy gear, so my cadence is a little bit higher. I think it's going to do really well.
So this bike had no trouble whatsoever. Justin finished the throttle test in 1 minute and 22 seconds at 13.2 miles per hour, and he pedaled to the top in 1 minute and 13 seconds at 14.9 miles per hour. Both numbers are relatively average for the fat tire category. There's only a second of difference between the Juggernaut's results and the average for the other bikes we've tested. That's a little deceptive though, because all but one of those other bikes had hub motors, which are usually faster uphill than bikes with mid-drives. This bike had a few advantages. So first is the fact that it has a 52-volt electrical system, which delivers power from the battery to the motor faster than more common 48-volt systems, which allows it to be used faster. Second is the sheer amount of torque that this motor has, which is again 120 Newton meters, and the average for similar bikes we've tested was 88 Newton meters. Third is the fact that this bike uses a cadence sensor, which, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't really require much pedal effort. But another great feature here is the fact that this bike's throttle can take advantage of its gearing. I found fourth gear to be pretty effective for the bigger hills in our area, but you might prefer third if yours are steeper, or fifth if you have smaller and more gradual hills. Now, I do also want to mention that we tested this bike in both its eco and sport modes, both at Hellhole and elsewhere. As I said earlier, there wasn't a whole lot of difference in feel, but there were some slight variations in results. So when pedaling at Hellhole, sport mode was about 5 seconds and 1 mile per hour faster. And when I tested the bike at our secondary location called Pilot Hill, I measured 6 seconds and 1.2 miles per hour of difference. With the throttle, there was only about a second difference in both cases. So again, either mode should work just fine, and we didn't really see any real reason to switch between them. The bottom line here is that you really shouldn't run into any trouble, even in more extreme situations, and this bike is powerful enough to give you the option to throttle or pedal up any hill you come across. The last thing I want to cover is ride quality, which includes a bunch of smaller topics that all contribute to how a bike feels to ride. Let's go back out on the Classic Duo one more time and talk about some of the basics, and then I'll meet you back here to go a little bit deeper.
All right, so let's talk about ride quality here on the Juggernaut. So this is definitely a sportier style of fat tire e-bike, which I think is evidenced in the riding position. I've got, a moderate forward lean going on, putting some weight on the handlebars, and I've got my arms, outstretched kind of down forward of me, kind of like I'm Superman right now. But it feels very comfortable. There are 2 frame sizes for this bike. There's a medium and a large, and basically those are made for riders from 5'4" and up. So I believe we are on the large right now, but I'm 5'11" and it feels great. I actually really dig this riding position here and just the overall feel and comfort of the bike. As far as adjustability goes, you have about 7 inches of saddle height adjustment with your seat post, and then you have a standard style stem up front. So with that, you could change your reach and your handlebar height to some degree just by loosening that up and then rotating these sort of low-rise handlebars a little bit. But we have a suspension fork up front to soften the ride that is made by RST, and that has either 75 or 80 millimeters of travel. It's listed differently in a couple of different places, so I will try to confirm that. The tires here are 24x4, and they're made by Kenda. So, as is common with this style of bike, you get a lot of good riding stability, gives you off-road capability, so you can kind of air those down and give yourself a little bit more grip and when you're riding off-road. And then, of course, you have that knobby tread pattern for looser terrain. And then, let's see, we have a 750 watt mid-drive motor from Bafang. Very powerful motor. This one uses a cadence sensor, which I will kind of show off the motor engagement for. So let me flip up to PAS5 here, kind of coast, and then I will start spinning the pedals now. Okay, so that was actually immediate. Power right away and plenty of it. So, I mean, going up that hill was just a total breeze. And that's the beauty of this 120 Newton meters of torque. And then you've got a couple different riding modes with eco and sport that we'll dig into a little bit more. I'm sure we've already talked about that, but In any case, I'm rambling, so let's bounce back to the studio and wrap things up.
So as I said there, I found a lot of things to like about this bike, and I did confirm that we have the medium-sized frame, which again is made for riders from 5'4" and up. I've got to say that I definitely recommend the upgrade to a suspension seat post. I think this saddle would feel pretty good regardless, but the combination of the fork and the seat post made for a really smooth ride. Ours was the Trans X Anti-Shock QL suspension seat post, but there are a couple of other options available on the Biktrix website as well. One thing that we didn't cover yet was handling, and this is an area with some room for improvement. Many fat tire bikes out there have 26-inch wheels, so this one felt a little more nimble with 24-inch wheels, which I liked, but we noticed quite a bit of flex with this step-through frame, and the standard RST guide suspension fork felt really soft, even with the preload adjustment all the way up, so cornering on this bike felt kinda loose and unsteady. To put it simply, this bike is functional as is, but we definitely welcome a stiffer ride. It's possible that our fork was a dud, but if not, we encourage Biktrix to use a sturdier standard fork, as the upgrade options get pretty expensive very quickly. The high step frame would likely help out a lot too, but we also feel that this step-through frame could benefit from some beefing up to make it more rigid. I was really happy with the quick motor engagement on this version of the bike, and I think it's a good option for those who want a really simple and easy pedal experience, but we do suspect that the on-off nature of the motor could result in the need for more frequent maintenance and parts replacement on the drivetrain, although we didn't have any issues on our test bike. The higher-end Juggernaut Ultra with a 1000-watt mid-drive uses a torque sensor, so that may be less of an issue. Plus, it might be a better option if you're looking for something that feels a little more active and natural. Again, there are really just tons of ways to customize this bike based on where you live, how you ride, and what you plan to use the bike for. We counted 28 different Juggernaut models, including all of the rear hub, mid-drive, step-through, high-step, full suspension, and hardtail options, which honestly got a little confusing to sort through, but there's probably an option for just about anyone there. This was definitely an interesting one, as there were a lot of really great features about the Juggernaut that aren't all that common on your average fat tire bike. I think this one will appeal to folks who want something with high speeds, a lot of power, and a really sporty feel, as well as those who want the flexibility to tackle some rougher off-road environments with confidence. This bike did a really solid job in most areas of our testing, with a great speed profile in both class settings, awesome range with a single battery and the option to add a second, and excellent climbing ability thanks to its powerful motor. Overall, I liked the bike, but there were a handful of downsides that I wasn't crazy about, mostly in terms of its handling and frame flex, but also with its 2 riding modes and the abundance of similar models on the Biktrix website. Fortunately, the most significant of those issues can be eliminated by choosing a different frame style or upgrading some components at purchase. Budget-wise, the Juggernaut has options ranging from about $2,000 up to over $8,000 depending on specs and components, so there's probably a setup in there to meet your needs. If you want to take a closer look at the Classic Duo ST or any of the other Juggernaut models, you can head over to the Biktrix website using one of the 2 links in the video description. The other will direct you to our written review over at our website, where you can also find plenty of news articles and educational content. But thanks for tuning in today. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to share this video with your friends. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the Biktrix Juggernaut Classic Duo ST.